suicidal satellites that clean up space. Pollution is a blight on land, sea, and even in space. More and more uncontrolled satellites and other space debris are circling the Earth. Astroscale, a Japanese firm, is aiming for orbital sustainability by launching cleanup satellites. The first mission, ELSA-D, End of Life Services by Astroscale demonstration, is scheduled for 2020. It will feature a servicer and a sea-linked satellite, both fitted with magnetic plates. The aim is to show that the servicer can target, find, and dispose of a junk satellite by binding with it and disintegrating on re-entry. The system could also be used to repair satellites in the future.
Now, we often hear about the problem of overflowing landfills and the challenges of waste disposal here on planet Earth. But as we saw in this clip, garbage in space is yet another problem that we have created for ourselves here on Earth. There are massive pieces of debris, as we saw, that are just floating around. And some actually weigh several tons, and they travel at an incredible speed. And if they were to ever hit another manned mission or a satellite, it could actually be a disaster. So, Marcus, what kind of garbage are we talking about? It's not, of course, plastic bottles and the waste that we know.
No, not at all. But the type of junk in space is mostly metal. A lot of it is satellites that have just died, have no more power supply, and several of them are rogue in that they are spinning out of control in low orbit, which, of course, as you said, is a great danger to all the other satellites that are up there, which are, of course, very fragile, and they're concentrated in a fairly small layer above the atmosphere. And of course, this is a great problem because we will need to deploy more and more satellites, probably microsatellites, for at least two major issues. One would be to bridge the digital divide, which is a major concern for us at NetExplo and our partners at UNESCO. Satellites are one way of bringing the internet to the parts of the world that do not have access to information and education in the way we do it in developed countries. And the second reason why we probably need more and more satellites is that they're obviously very useful for monitoring climate change and managing and predicting, preventing natural disasters, which unfortunately are likely to become more and more common in the coming decades as well.
Now, Astroscale is a Japanese firm. Let's now listen to Nobu Okada, who's based in Tokyo.
First of all, we are so happy to be selected to be one of the 10 companies. Honestly, we have not yet removed even one debris from space yet. We are going to have the first debris removal demonstration mission this year. So it's a bit, I feel kind of awkward because after completion of the demonstration, maybe we are worth awarding, but it's not yet. But having said that, our team are very happy. So because our team joined from space agencies and large companies, moved to Astroscale to remove the space debris and make space sustainable. And then this is a very long mission. So for our team and their families, this prize encourage the team and feel like we are doing the right things. So thank you very much. Space debris issue. Space debris is a garbage in space, and we have had a 70 years history of space development, and over the time, human beings littered objects into space, and the density of the space objects have reached the critical level where chain reaction of the collision can happen at any near future. So we have to remove garbage soon from space. And then space industry have known this issue for a long time, but nobody has come up with. Looking at the 2050, there are two patterns of the society. One is sustainable society, the other is unsustainable society. And then the space, people are thinking about sustainability matter on the Earth, but space is facing the same kind of problem right now. And if we do not take any actions, the space will become space will not be sustainable anymore. So we want to make space sustainable by allowing the development while mitigating the debris risk, and so that we can enjoy the space technology going forward. Now we are in 2020, and by 2030, we want make space debris removal as a kind of a routine. ありがとうございます。そしてさようなら。
Now, we actually spoke to Professor Enrique Duns from the IE Business School in Madrid about this innovation, and this is what he had to say.
Hello, my name is Enrique Duns. Hello, my name is Enrique Duns, Professor of Innovation in IE University. The space in general, and in particular the orbits of our planet, will become one of the most important and competitive economic panoramas of the 20s. SpaceX has revolutionized the industry by dramatically lowering the barriers to entry. The company will launch some 12,000 satellites in 3 different orbits in the next few years. Amazon will launch more than 3,000 in the same environment. Many other companies are competing in this market. The market is flourishing, is becoming really big. This industry will become huge and will provide a number of services. Many of the things that of the services we get right now, like telecommunications or observation, will come from satellites, among many other things. I gave my highest marks to Astroscale because it's a startup positioning itself to become a platform in such economic ecosystem, and that's extremely important. A platform business model in such ecosystem could have a lot of possibilities. Astroscale is trying to become the standard for services performed to satellites while in orbit, whether we talk about updating them, solving problems, or decommissioning and destroying them when the space becomes too crowded. A few years ago, a company like this would have probably sounded crazy. We used to think that space was an unlimited place. But by now, we know the problems that arise from a saturation of our orbits. And we know for sure that we need some fix for this problem. And Astroscale could be a very interesting possibility to do all these things, to clean up the space or to service space while in orbit. The space is not necessarily a one-way street. Astroscale seems to be uniquely positioned to provide these services in a market that will become extremely interesting and with very few other competitors.
Now, Professor Enrique Duns there really gave us some perspective on how much of a growing problem this is actually going to be. Just to be clear, once they've actually collected all this garbage, does it come back to Earth, and what actually happens then?
No, these satellites are designed to lock on to space debris, which is a huge feat of engineering, because often these junk satellites are just completely out of control, and they lock onto them with a magnetic plate. And the idea then is to disintegrate together in a controlled way, so none of the junk ends up on Earth and it all gets burned up in the atmosphere. The first mission this year will just get rid of one satellite. The idea later is for each mission to take care of 3 or 4 items of space junk that pose problem in low orbit, and then burn them all up together in like a suicide mission.
But isn't there a contradiction in the fact of having to send satellites to get rid of parts of other satellites? I mean, isn't it it feels like, it's not getting rid of the problem.
Well, that's quite right. And that's why Astroscale, for example, want to set up a system where their technology is built into satellites as we launch them. And then there could be, for example, a permanent satellite in space that would clean all the others up. The problem is you need to capture them. And there's no technology built into the satellites that are currently in space that enables us to capture them easily and destroy them without any impact on the environment.
Now, this is an interesting point, because it was also mentioned by Enrique Duns there. He was saying that, a couple of years ago, this innovation would have sounded completely crazy. So it means that we created all these different satellites, all these objects that are to be sent to space without even thinking about what we're supposed to do with them. What's next? And that's part of developing an innovation, to think about what's next.
Yeah, I think entrepreneurs and innovators are more and more aware of the need to factor in their impact and their end-of-life solutions into into what they make, what they design. But this hasn't always been the case. And as Enrique Dance mentioned, we used to send things up into space and assume that it was infinite. But the low orbits that these satellites operate in do not have infinite capacity for the thousands and thousands of satellites that we're planning to send up there. So they really need cleaning up if these satellites are going to fulfill their potential of, for example, helping us manage natural disasters or bringing the internet to regions that don't have the infrastructure for now.
Well, Marcus Godard, thank you very much indeed for that. If you actually want to vote for this innovation, you can do it on the application. It's much easier, of course, but you can also send a text message with the number 3 to this number that's appearing on your screen. The country code is +33 644 6307 10. And we're going to move on now to Tom is going to be actually back on set with Land Life. It's an innovation from the Netherlands, and they've planted more than 1 million trees last year, and this is just the beginning.